Well, it's a tough question. I'm not much of a one for lists, top fives, favourites, those kinds of things. So there was lots of video works I could have spoken about, and I thought about a number of them. And one of them came so close that I have to actually mention it, which is Linda Montano's Mitchell's Death. But instead of that, I'm going to actually talk about Yang Fudong's East of Wei Village. So East of Wei Village is a five-screen video work, synchronized five-screen surround sound installation work, and it's shot just east of Wei Village. Not fully into the north of China, but certainly northern China, certainly drier kind of an area, and it's just near where Yang Fudong grew up. So across the five screens, it essentially, follows a pack of dogs. Now, they're not quite wild dogs, but they may as well be. They're starving. But we know they're not wild because we, on occasion, see one tied up. And they kind of rove around this village and the adjacent fields, scavenging for food, fighting amongst each other. And over the course of the 20 minutes of the work, one kind of gets the impression that they end up eating each other. You don't have the sense that Fudong's in any way interfered with the situation. We seem to be watching classic kind of observational documentary footage, fly on a wall, stuff's just unfolding in front of us. Now, of course, we all know about the impossibilities of something, of it actually being fly on a wall, but it has that effect, that kind of uninterfered with quality. What five things I like about it? Five things I like about it. Well, it is exquisitely shot, so it has all of the values of very well made documentary in a more classic, made for television, made for theatre scenario. I mean, beautifully shot, beautifully observed. Now that's done without lighting or anything like that. This is just the situation as it unfolds, captured beautifully. So the production values make it, very seductive to look at. But more than what a traditional documentary could do, it actually shows how video art can contribute to that form. What can it do that a documentary that we might see on SBS or at some art house cinema, what can this installation do that those things can't? And one thing it can do is time. Okay, so it just kind of unfolds in front of us. There's no editorial imperative. It doesn't operate at the pace of television, okay? So it's incredibly languid. It's just unfolding in front of you, and your impressions are just accumulating slowly by watching it in its totality. The points aren't pressed home. It just has a lovely spaciousness about it. So that's a privilege and a license that video art has, and it's wonderful to see it exploited in that way. Of course, video has historically defined itself by extended durations, and that's led to its poor reputation with some people, that it can be extremely tedious, but that's not the case here. I guess that's what I'm saying. It's able to use that potential to be expansive and show us a situation unfolding very slowly. Without it being tedious. One just adjusts one's pace and is drawn into this environment. The other thing I think it adds to the potential of more traditional documentary or factual filmmaking is that it's expanded. It's five screens. So of course that experience of watching in parallel rather than in sequence furnishes enormous possibilities about the depth at which we can watch something. It also reminds us that, in fact, this is not a 20-minute work, it's a 100-minute work. And so one can have multiple experiences of it. should one choose to hang around. So the degree to the amount of visual and sonic information we're able to be given, where essentially, if we're in there, we're basically watching 100 minutes, of this village and this pack of dogs unfold. So I suppose the combination of those two things is my third point, which is that it occupies a unique space. Often at a party or something, you say you're a video artist, or you're getting introduced to someone, you're a video artist, and people want to know, do you mean music videos? What do you mean? Where do we see video art? What's video art? And I suppose as time goes on, and we do see a large amount of crossover artists from video moving into cinema, artists from music video crossing over into the visual art world, or being recognised as part of the visual art canon, and then also working in advertising and cinema. There's kind of a collapse of what we might have called genres or areas of production or platforms, But I suppose for me, this is a work that really clearly exploits video art's potential, and its license. It can only exist in that environment. So it tells us very clearly, it gives an answer to those people at the parties. What's video art? Well, video art might be where you get 5 screens really kind of languidly and slowly unfolding a scenario for us, not telling us anything per se, or in terribly didactic terms, just allowing a situation to unfold over time. So I think the fact that it embraces so much of the potential of video, and it kind of defines what video might still do in this period when so many media have collapsed into each other, I think is part of its value as well. Fourthly, I think it also addresses another key question. It's died away now, I suppose, although this argument constantly resurfaces about the nature of realism in the moving image, and the role, how the degree of realism that's possible with the moving. There's big arguments went on through the 50s about, with theorists like Krakauer and so on, about the realist function of the moving image being the most important thing it does. It was so well suited to it. It had sound, had time, it had vision, it had movement. It was the best possibility we had for capturing, the greatest bulk of what our day-to-day sensorial experience was. But this work is able to exploit that realist function, of the moving image, and also be bleakly allegorical at the same time. And the two things aren't, that it's not forced in any way. There's nothing, heavy-handed about that fit. So this pack of wild dogs kind of roaming around this village do speak to the human condition, in a rather, albeit bleak way, but, definitely are capable of doing that. And yeah, so fifth point. Now, the fifth point's a bit of a trick one. When I saw this work, I thought, once again, right, this is what video can do. This is what one person and a camera can do. Because I work that way. I shoot entirely by myself most of the time. Even when I collaborate, I'm often doing the lighting, the camera, and the editing. So whilst I admire, or can acknowledge the scale of works like Isaac Julian's, that operate on the cinematic budget, and it's enormous, I'm still also interested in the model of video art as one in which the traditional production models of television and film are collapsed into one or two people. That still appeals to me about video, and I think an important part of video's story is the democratization of technology. That this was in people's hands that didn't have industrial or commercial budgets. So I watched the Yang Fudong piece and I thought, wow, this really sets quite a high sets the bar rather high for what one person and a camera can do, thinking that that's what I was seeing, because everything unfolded so naturally. It seemed so unintrusive, you know. I thought, you know, this is really impressive. I thought words like Hatsuyume and I do not know what it is I am like, you know, Bill Viola's long form works from the early 80s. And much as I dislike the work of the second half of his career, I think those two works are a high watermark for long form video art that shows, once again, what it's capable of and what's possible within it that we don't see in other media. And so I thought of this as kind of the same thing. Here's a guy and his camera, and here's what he's achieved. You know, I found out subsequently that he was working with a full film crew, and it was shot on 35mm, and you know there was a million of them there with clipboards. But nonetheless, that was what excited me at the time. Okay, so Yang Fudong, east of Wei Village.